Before people had fantasy football teams, they still argued about imaginary matchups. In the 90s, action movies were big, and a lot of celebrities even did their own stunts. One dream matchup was Steven Seagal versus Jean-Claude Van Damme, two of the biggest action movie heroes of the day. At one point, fellow action star Sylvester Stallone claimed to have witnessed Van Damme challenging Seagal to a fight at a party. Sadly, this was back before everyone and their dog had a cell phone that took videos, so there's little proof, but it's still interesting to wonder which action movie star is as powerful in real life than on the big screen. From Van Damme to The Rock and Jason Momoa, here's a look at some Hollywood tough guy matchups. Steven Seagal began his career as an Aikido instructor and lived in Japan for several years in the early 70s. At one point, he claimed to have studied under Morihei Ueshiba, who founded the Aikido martial art. However, his claims came under scrutiny when someone discovered that Ueshiba died in 1969, prior to Seagal's time in Japan. There's also some confusion over exactly what years the actor lived in Japan. Regardless, Seagal eventually returned to the US, where he opened an Aikido dojo in California. Then, in 1987, he got his first movie, Above the Law, after his student Michael Ovitz arranged for Seagal to do an Aikido demonstration for Warner Brothers execs. They were so impressed, they offered him several scripts, which he turned down. Eventually, he agreed to write a treatment that would become his first film, Above the Law. Seagal continued making movies, and in 1992 he had his first blockbuster hit, Under Siege. The Aikido instructor turned actor quickly became known for his martial arts fight scenes and action-packed movies. Meanwhile, Jean-Claude Van Damme began karate lessons at age 10 and earned a black belt by the time he was 18. First, he learned Shotokan karate and kickboxing, then Taekwondo and Muay Thai. Along the way, he also lifted weights and studied ballet, saying that ballet is one of the most difficult sports he tried. In 1980, then 20-year-old Van Damme defeated a former teammate in the Forest National Karate match in the first round. A swift kick to the nose rendered his opponent unable to continue. Yeah, that would render me unable to continue too. By 1982, Van Damme had compiled a record of 18 victories and only one defeat. Hey, everybody has a bad day every now and then. That year, the Belgian-born karate kicker, known as the Muscles from Brussels, moved to the US to pursue an acting career. There, he somehow managed to become friends with Chuck Norris, and even worked as a bouncer at Norris's bar. They also sparred together. Later, he worked on the stunt team for Norris's movie, Missing in Action. After doing a few parts, Van Damme got his first big role in the martial arts movie, No Retreat, No Surrender. But his first big hit movie was 1998's Bloodsport. He went on to star in many international hits, including Lionheart and Time Cop, showing off his martial arts skills in all of them. So, how did this rumor about Van Damme challenging Seagal to a fight get started? It all began when Sylvester Stallone claimed the two had an altercation at a party in Stallone's Miami home. Stallone told British magazine FHM that Van Damme was tired of hearing Seagal claim he could kick Van Damme's ass, so he offered him the chance to prove it. Being a gentleman, he suggested they take the fight outside. Wouldn't want to knock over any expensive decoration in Sly Stallone's mansion, right? Seagal turned him down on the outdoor match and left the party, but Van Damme tracked him down at a nightclub and again tried to pick a fight. Once again, it did not materialize, and we only have Stallone's word for any of this because it occurred before YouTube. Seagal, when asked his thoughts on Jean-Claude Van Damme, had this to say.
Thoughts on Jean-Claude Van Damme?
Can I laugh in your face? I think Jean-Claude's a tough guy in martial arts. No.
On another occasion, Seagal was asked point blank if it was true he'd gotten in a fight with Van Damme.
That's where I saw Jean-Claude Van Damme. Is that true he got in a fight with you?
No. It'd be like me squashing an ant.
Whether or not you believe Seagal could squash Van Damme like an ant, he had some pretty impressive moves in his youth. I'm pretty sure if I tried any of those tricks, I'd be in traction for weeks. When Van Damme was questioned about the would-be fight, He said Sylvester Stallone never lies, but generally the actor was ironic about that situation. Steven won this fight, as he was enjoying a meal while I was freezing outside. He seems to be suggesting in a backhanded way that Seagal won because he chickened out of the matchup in the first place. Sadly, everyone involved seems to agree the fight never happened, but it would have been interesting to watch if anyone at the party had one of those big old-fashioned video cameras. Both men have martial arts training, and Van Damme did win 18 matches. After years of running a dojo and choreographing martial arts scenes for films, Seagal branched out into law enforcement work. In the late 80s, he taught the Jefferson Parish deputies martial arts and unarmed combat, so he's clearly a tough person to take on in a fight. Incidentally, he later became a reserve deputy for the parish and lives in Louisiana several months a year. Imagine getting arrested by Steven Seagal. Woo-hoo. So it's hard to say who would win in a fight between the two, but that doesn't stop people from discussing the hypothetical matchup online. There are whole threads dedicated to arguing over who would beat the other. On one forum, nearly 87% of readers believe Van Damme would have won. I'd like to see some other tough guy matchups. How about Vin Diesel and The Rock? These two have been talking smack about each other for a while. I'd love to see some sort of pay-per-view fight where they finally come to blows like some YouTubers have done. Back in 2016, The Rock slammed some co-stars on Instagram that he didn't name at the time, implying he wasn't always acting when he got angry with someone in a movie. The post has since been removed, but it said, "Some conduct themselves as stand-up men and true professionals, while others don't. When you watch this movie next April, it seems like I'm not acting in some of these scenes, and my blood is legit boiling." "You're right," he said. However, he went on to add that the two solved their differences amicably, and are friends now. That's pretty understanding of Diesel, after The Rock called his co-stars candy asses and other words in a deleted Instagram post. He also allegedly told UFC champ Tyrone Woodley he could flex on Diesel in a fight. The Rock, whose real name is Dwayne Johnson, began his career as a wrestler, and I've heard rumors that wrestling is, well, exaggerated. Still, The Rock racked up a lot of WWE championships, which suggests he's at least very good at exaggerating with his fists. His father, grandfather, and several other relatives were also professional wrestlers. During his record-breaking WWE wins, The Rock defeated Jericho, The Undertaker, and John Cena, among others. At 6'5" and 260 pounds, he towers over Diesel. Meanwhile, Vin Diesel became an action movie star in the early 2000s with the breakout hit The Fast and the Furious, which was followed by 7 more Fast and Furious movies, including the one where he and The Rock met up. Although he has a lot of acting and screenwriting experience, he's never been a fighter, exaggerated or not. However, his Fast and the Furious character is known for his many action-packed exploits, and Diesel is seen as a tough guy in Hollywood. He stands 5'9" at 224 pounds. Diesel also claimed in an interview that he could take The Rock in a fight if their now settled disagreement ever came to blows. Esquire readers are not so easily convinced, however. After the two stars had a war of words, the magazine asked readers who they thought would win an actual fight. 90% of those polled said they thought The Rock could smash Vin Diesel. Assuming The Rock won that fight, it would also be cool to see him take on Jason Momoa, also known as Conan the Barbarian. He reportedly stands about 6'4" and weighs around 231 pounds. Momoa learned martial arts for his role in Conan, as well as Stargate Atlantis. No stranger to fights, he sports a scar over his left eyebrow, which he claims to have gotten during a heated bar fight when he was hit with a pint glass. You should see the other guy. No, seriously, I want to see how the other guy looked after doing that to Jason Momoa. But as it turned out, Momoa was actually happy to get the 140-stitch scar, because it helped him shed the pretty boy image left over from his early days as a model. He also later upped his tough guy image even further when he commented to a friend that he'd look more authentic as Conan with a broken nose. To help him out, his friend punched him in the nose, breaking it. The actor is clearly very ripped, and Twitter had a field day earlier this year over some photos of him with his relatively tiny-looking bodyguards. CNET posted a story with the headline, "No one needs bodyguards less than Aquaman Jason Momoa." One obviously jealous Twitter user said, One day I want to be so jacked that my professional bodyguards look like mini-bosses you have to beat before you can fight me. Could Momoa take on The Rock? Well, that seems like a better match than Vin Diesel, who apparently has already lost the fight in the fandom's eyes anyway. There are also pages devoted to the Rock-Jason Momoa matchup, with some commenters noting that they think Momoa is more of a bodybuilder and The Rock more of an athlete. Others believe Momoa has a longer reach and is less injury-prone than The Rock. More fans started arguing about who would win in a fight between Momoa's characters, Game of Thrones' Khal Drogo and Aquaman. Generally, the consensus seems to lean toward Momoa beating The Rock. Personally, I wouldn't want to take off either of these guys, or the characters they play, or their bodyguards, but I would like front row tickets to see a fight between some of the most legendary Hollywood tough guys. What insane celebrity matchup would you like to see? And which Hollywood tough guy do you think is the most authentic? Let me know in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching.